Can y'all hear me? Well, I noticed this is a kind of an exceptionally rowdy crowd tonight, and I wasn't sure if all the older people got a power nap like I did, or maybe it's all these new young interns that are here tonight. Yeah, graduates. Yeah, either that or it's a pizza. It's got to be the pizza. So I'm going to get some more after here. Anyway, I'd like to introduce you our speaker, and I could barely wait for her to be here. Okay. Maybe y'all aren't as sharp as I thought y'all were. Anyway, she's the executive director of Bears, etc., a bear and exotic animal rescue and sanctuary, and has been passionate about animals and their well-being her entire life. She went to veterinary technology school at Purdue University. She's a Boilermaker, where she minored in wildlife management, natural resources, and tracked wildlife exotics. She's a fifth generation farmer and a certified master gardener too. So she does quite a bit of things. Her and her husband founded the Bears, etc., and their goal was to leave the world a better place than they found it by connecting with people, nature, and giving them and their rescued animals a piece of the wild. She currently lives in Montgomery, and of course, y'all know the weather's been relentless up that way. So we've been blessed not to have any of that weather. That's why she's not here, but she's here online. She's the chairman of the Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce and a diplomat for the Conroe Lake Conroe Chamber of Commerce. She's vice president of the Texas Black Bear Alliance and sixth on the advocacy committee for the Big Cat Sanctuary Alliance. She cares about her community and leaving it a better place. So with no more to do, Miss Kati Krouse.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So, as he said, nature is one of my favorite things. My husband is an ecologist, so he has the wild animal part of our marriage, and I have the captive wildlife part of our marriage, and putting this organization together and then joining the Texas Black Bear Alliance. So as we go through my presentation today, there's a couple different parts, right? Because we want to get everything into it when it comes to the captive wildlife trade. And whoops, this is not the right. Hold on. How is it showing on your end? Is it showing a video?
Yes.
Okay. In the bears?
It's a bear around some logs.
Does it say the Forgotten on it, or does it say?
Yes, it says the Forgotten.
Okay, hold on just a second. That is not the right. And we even practiced today. Here, let's try this. Is it?
Okay, this one has your name down towards the bottom.
Okay. This is the right one. So I am Kati Krouse. I'm the executive director and founder of Bears, etc. We now currently live in Huntsville. We just moved just in time for all the flooding. So I appreciate you guys and your patience in allowing me to switch last minute to video conference instead. So I do sit as the vice chair of the Texas Black Bear Alliance. If anybody knows Adrian or Ellen or anybody that sits on that, if you've been to any of our annual meetings in January, we're working with Texas Parks and Wildlife to identify proper habitat for bears in East Texas, but also helping them identify if it was truly a bear that was seen right? So we talk about the bear in orange, which I will mention a little bit later. But these organizations are the ones that are working for black bears in Texas. Texas Parks and Wildlife has a lot on their plate currently. Dana did speak at our annual meeting on the topic that they have a lot of endangered species that live in Texas that are a higher priority than the bears, because bears are not an endangered species in the United States, whereas some of the others are. And they're also handling all of the cougar stuff. So if you haven't given your feedback on Texas Parks and Wildlife's website about the cougars, please go let them know you want to approve policies on ending the foot traps and stuff like that, that are allowed currently in Texas. Historical range of black bears once covered the entire United States, Canada, down into central Mexico. That's the picture on your left. The picture on your right is current ranges. So you'll see there is the Mexican black bear that's there on the West Texas side of our state. And then up into New Mexico, and then mostly up north, right? So where did they go? The state once housed the Louisiana black bear, or the luteolus that was native to southeast Texas. And then the Ursus americanus was found in central North Texas, and then the Mexican and the New Mexican black bear were found in West Texas. They were eradicated by the 1900s by ranchers and farmers. If you're familiar with Montgomery County, they were actually shooting bears off of the original courthouse in Conroe when they were building it. And also Sam Houston had his hunting cabin in Montgomery, what is now Walden Road. And Walden Road in 105, that was called Bear Corner. So there are articles that I've found that Sam Houston hunted bears there from the cabin that now sits, I believe, in Huntsville in the little park. It has Sam Houston's cabin. But more recently, Louisiana and Arkansas have reintroduced bears into their states. So now we're seeing some of those transient males coming from those states. And then the first Mexican black bear came across the Rio Grande in the 1960s and settled in Big Bend. And so now we have a resident population of about 50 black bears over there. So if any of you have been over there and seen bears, or if you watch Deep in the Heart, which is streaming right now, I believe on Fox, it shows some of the black bears in Big Bend eating the acorns from that the woodpeckers have stashed. If you haven't seen that, I would highly recommend you watch it. And it's narrated by Matthew McConaughey, so who wouldn't like that, right? Why are they important? So if you've seen the videos of the wolves getting reintroduced in Yellowstone, it's basically the same. They are the top predator, and bears have been known to take piglets and run up a tree with them, or take a juvenile hog and eat it, so they can help control the hog population once we have a large enough population. But also they're our top propagator. So as a master gardener and a farmer, this is very exciting for me, because bear poop is very fertile in that it will grow just about anything in it. And they will travel 40 miles a day in search of food and water and habitat and mates. And so as they walk along eating, they spread the seeds of native plants, and then it will grow them, right? And so that's very exciting for those, whereas birds and other animals like bobcats or coyotes have much smaller territories. And the reason this is that bears are seasonal feeders, and what they eat in the spring and what they eat in the summer and what they eat in the fall are totally different things. And then, of course, in the winter, they're mostly sleeping and not eating. They get up and snack here in Texas, but they don't totally go to sleep like the bears up north do. And so all along the way, they're spreading these seeds, and we know this helps. Planting this helps with erosion. It helps with climate change. It helps with all kinds of stuff by having native plants back in our area. Sightings in Texas. When I show people this graph on the right, we talk about what happened in 2020. We shut down, right? And so there were a lot, the bears came out a lot more, mostly in West Texas, are most of these sightings. And they actually changed where they traveled. And so they were seen more often. And then in 2022, we've seen less. And does anybody know why that might be? I think you guys just have a microphone. Most of the time my chats are pretty interactive, and so I can't see you.
Oh, sorry.
But that's okay. We had a drought, and so they're not going to be somewhere where there's not water, because they need food, water, shelter to survive, just like any wildlife. And so they really moved away, and we haven't seen them for a while. Except for some of the residents that stay in Big Bend. But the chart on the left, the picture of the state, you'll see the counties that in red that have the breeding populations, and then the yellow is the just confirmed sightings. Now that we know that they're traveling into the area, it's important to know the difference between the bears and the hogs and what to do when we see one. Because sometimes neighbors aren't going to like that there are bears in the area because of fear, right? And we like to tell people, my favorite thing, I had a news channel when I spoke down in Beaumont, quote me, they're not going to eat your kids at the bus stop. That's what I just keep saying, because bears in Texas are not going to be like the bears in Yellowstone. They are very secretive, very quiet. They're going to live in the thick underbrush, not coming out to where people are so much, unless there's a reason to, like in the fall during hyperphagia, when they just eat and eat and eat and eat. So if you do see a bear or think you see a bear, these are the numbers for sightings. And knowing the difference in the shape of the animals, a bear's butt is going to be a little bit higher than its head. The way they walk, hogs kind of move their feet evenly, whereas bears actually pick up their feet and walk. The way they hold their head, unless a bear is like smelling the ground and stuff looking for food, most of the time their head is going to be held up, where a hog's head is always kind of held even or down. And I apologize for my dog barking in the background. So when we talk about bears and the way that, is there a picture of a bear swimming on your, I'm sorry, what was that?
Yes, there's
Okay.
a picture of a bear.
So some of the problems that the bears may incur when they come across Texas are the deforestation that's happening. Montgomery County has been the fastest growing county in the nation 3 years running. And so there's a lot of deforestation and destruction of habitat. Some other things are drought, but water is not one of those things that's going to deter bears from coming here. They actually swim very well. And so, and they actually like the water. You'll see a lot of videos on trail cams and just nature footage of them just playing in the water and bathing. And they look really cute. This is a picture that was sent to me by a rancher in Koontz. And the thing I want you guys to see is not only, you probably have a hard time seeing there's a shape in the center left side of the screen, but the behavior of the deer. This happened, I also got a phone call for one in Montgomery. and that her cattle started acting weird. They don't react to hogs this way. They're used to hogs, but when they smell something new, their behavior changes. They're all looking the same direction. Something they've heard or seen or smelled is startling them, and they're trying to figure it out. This is kind of indicative behavior of something new that they've never met before, which when I blew it up on the screen, it does look like the outline of a bear. I sent it to Texas Parks and Wildlife, and he's like, it's too grainy. So they wouldn't say that it was a bear, but it really looked bear-like. And then everybody's seen this picture last fall, right? So again, look at the shape. Look at the butt kind of higher than the head. Obviously, he's down eating. Look at its size. Bears are not much bigger than hogs. But when we look at the size of the palm fronds, we know it's not a dog, right? And then look at the fur. The fur is very shiny, whereas hog hide is going to be dry and not reflective. Bears have an oil on their fur to repel rain. And so that's what's shining in the sun. One of our people with Texas Black Bear Alliance and one of our friends that lives in Orange went down and talked to the homeowner that shot this picture. And Adrian, part of Texas Black Bear Alliance, who is one of the biggest naysayers that it wasn't a bear, came back and was just like, I believe this guy that it was a bear. And so did one of our outdoor writers that I'm friends with, who writes for nature articles, and was like, okay, this has got to be a bear. Unfortunately, it had been too dry, and so they couldn't find tracks or scat to confirm. But everybody is in agreement, except for Texas Parks and Wildlife, that it was a bear. So when we talk about and this is a picture blown up of the deer feeder picture. When we talk about the lands of, do you know landowners that will put up game cams? Do you know landowners that will report the sightings? Because a lot of people are scared the bear's going to get shot. But do you know landowners that we can talk to so bears don't get shot? They're not going to harm your kids. And there's enough food in our forests currently that they're not going to eat their cattle or anything like that. And because Texas is 95% privately owned, we really want to get out there and talk to those people in your area. So I would love to come and do like an open house and talk about bears for people in East Texas to protect these bears that are moving in. Because conservation is a shared responsibility. And so we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page and receiving the same message, that the bears aren't these big scary animals that we see in movies and TV. So we did help put together the Black Bear Management Plan for Texas Parks and Wildlife. It was published a year ago, February, and it is to minimize frequency of conflicts, improve outcomes of conflicts, minimize human-induced mortality, so hit by cars or being shot because it's getting into stuff, protect and enhance bear habitat, identify and fill knowledge gaps, which is what I'm doing here, right? This is why I'm here. I want to talk to people about bears aren't as dangerous as was once thought. If appropriate, restore bears into suitable habitat where natural. So this is a really, really expensive part of the management plan. And right now there are actually no plans in the works for this because they have so much other on their plate with the swift fox, with the black-footed ferret, with a lot of these species that are critically endangered and only live in Texas, found nowhere else in the United States. And so this last one really isn't on the books or isn't part of the plan as of right now. Another way you can help is calling your senators. There is a Recovering America's Wildlife Act There is something similar in the House, but it's not exactly the same. So we really want our senators to pass this. It will give, I believe it was $1.4 million to Texas. Each state gets a percentage of those money to Recover America's Wildlife Act. And what this will do is it can create new jobs for Texas Parks and Wildlife to get more either mammalogists or give them more staff or more monies to help bring back and get more conservation for the different parks and things of that nature, because we know that I know here at the Sam Houston National Forest, they have cut jobs a couple times since we've moved here in 2014. And so it will create new jobs for the state, not for the national parks, but for the state. And it will help get more plans going and in turn help the bears with habitat and stuff. This is
Hearing the call of a songbird, seeing a monarch land on milkweed, or bighorn sheep scale rocky terrain. These are the moments that connect us across generations. But these species and others are at heightened risk of disappearing, facing shrinking habitats, climate change, disease, and other threats. More than 12,000 species need our help, from our backyards to the backcountry. We need a solution as big as the challenges they face. The bipartisan Recovering America's Wildlife Act will help prevent extinction and ensure the full diversity of wildlife thrive for future generations. This bill is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to invest in states, tribes, and territories on-the-ground work to conserve and restore species through collaboration and innovation. When we save wildlife, we save ourselves. Join us today to help pass the bipartisan Recovering America's Wildlife Act.
And you can go to Texas Parks and Wildlife. To their YouTube channel, they have a video for this. This is so bipartisan and just a great bill that we're very excited about to help with that. So it's a federal bill, so every state will get monies from it, like I said. Other ways you can help, as we all know, reducing your electrical usage, reduce your paper usage, reduce your plastic usage. I have somebody come up to me one day and she's like, I only use paper bags at the grocery store. And I'm like, well, that's great, but bears in Louisiana live in trees. And so she's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So reusable bags, right? Plant natives, as we spoke about in Montgomery County. We have a lot of growth and a lot of habitat being just clear cut, and then they put in the houses, and then they put in non-native species. So that doesn't help. So we want to talk to homeowners. Their HOA usually requires them to have so many bushes and so many trees, because that's what was required by law for the subdivisions to be put in. And so we want to talk to them about planting native trees and planting native plants specifically for the birds and the bees, and help the Texas Conservation Alliance, Texas Black Bear Alliance with education, outreach, and habitat restoration. And this is us, members of our Texas Black Bear Alliance team at the Texas Conservation Alliance Planting Day. They have those December, January, and February. And so we really promote people going out and helping to plant. It's usually half a day, and they supply sandwiches for lunch, and usually in the big thicket. So how can you be safe once there are bears? It's important, if you're in an area where there are bears, that you don't hike alone. Carry bear spray. I tell people that it's better than mace because it shoots 12 feet instead of just a couple feet. And then make sure you carry it on your belt. I can't tell you how many bear awareness programs I've done, and people keep it in their backpack as they're hiking. And I'm like, it needs to be carried on your hip, or on your pack. Like some people carry it on the strap on their pack. And make sure you've practiced with it so you know if it's something that you have to flip the switch, or if you have to pull a pin, there's different types of bear spray. You can get these online on Amazon or at REI. It's just important to have around. But also, I mean, you could spray a person with it too if there's someone in the woods that's being scary. Hike with a walking stick. Don't wear earbuds while hiking. You want to be out in nature. You want to hear what's going on. So make sure that you don't have anything in your ears for these younger generations that like to just put their earbuds in and go. Survey the landscape for prints and scat. Seeing fresh bear poop will be a good sign that there's a bear somewhere close. Watch for rubs on trees. And I'm going to show this cute video of this mom bear. And these are communication trees. And that different bears come around and rub on these trees to tell them that they've been there. So when we talk about these rubs on the trees and the difference between maybe a deer rub is going to really splinter the tree, whereas a bear rub is usually going to have kind of a flat spot in the center where, and then may have claw marks. And remember, bears have 5 toes. So there may be claw marks and there may be bite marks. So you're going to see canines and indentations from their teeth. So that way you know that there's been a bear there versus a deer that's come and done a rub on the tree. And most of all, just be bear aware. 98% of all bear-human conflict happens because of human ignorance or someone not being aware of their surroundings or not listening to the rangers or something of that nature, and not being able to know or have the knowledge, not educating themselves before going hiking. One of the things that I usually have people do when I'm in their presence giving this presentation is I have everybody hold out their thumb. And if you can see me outside of your thumb, you're too close. My personal space, my personal bubble is a lot larger than that, so you need to back up. So if you can, and this works with any wildlife, right? When we talk about respect for wildlife, is if you can hold your thumb over it and not see it through your thumb, then you are a good ways away from it. It's not going to feel threatened, that you can sit and watch it. But if you can see it outside of your thumb, then you're too close. Back up, because we like seeing them in their natural behavior, in their natural habitat. So the other way to help with wildlife is what Bears Etc. is doing. So there are a lot of places out there where you can do what's called pay to play. So you can pay to go interact and feed or swim with animals. And these animals have no conservation value, and neither do these organizations. They use these animals strictly for money. And then at the end of the cub petting season, or when the animal ages out, they're actually sold to the highest bidder, or sold into the exotic pet trade where people can keep them as pets, and things of that nature. There is a bear facility up in Idaho that at the end of the cub petting season, the bear cubs are taken out and euthanized. And so we tell people all the time, do not pay to play with animals, no matter what they are, because that money does not go back into conservation. And there are places all over the United States. Prior to December of 2022, you could do it with big cats, but we aided in the passing of the Big Cat Public Safety Act. I was very happy to say that my congressman at the time, Congressman Brady, voted yes after voting twice before no, after talking to him about what happens with these cubs after they can no longer be used. Not sharing selfies, pictures, or videos of interactions with wildlife on social media, because when people see you doing that, then they think they can do it too. I have a hard time with some of my zookeeper friends because they don't realize, because people don't disassociate that this animal is in captivity and is used to this keeper, whereas the fluffy cows in Yellowstone are not used to people coming up and petting them or getting very close to them. You know, people need to keep a safe distance, and they're just not disassociating that what wild animals are and what captive wild animals are. So be aware when hiking, and again, the not taking the selfies and posting them to social media. You want to, like, if you want to post pictures with your zoom lens or something like that, make sure you say, I'm using this lens, I was this far away from this animal, because a lot of people think you're that close to that animal and you were safe, when in reality, you're hundreds of yards away. And so this is what we're building.
Hi, I'm Katie Krouse, founder and executive director of Bears Etc., a bear and exotic animal rescue sanctuary. My journey started with a rescue of a little bear named Mamie on a cold February day in 2011. Mamie was declawed and defanged and had lived in a 20-foot diameter corn crib for over 22 years, constantly being bred to sell her cubs into the exotic pet trade. I promised Mamie that day that she and all of the other bears would have a place to play, nap, and eat like a true wild bear to their heart's content. In 2017, Bears Etc. was founded to provide a piece of the wild to help people, bears, and other animals. We are searching for the perfect place to build our new rescue campus and looking for your support. Help bring this community treasure to life and let it be a part of your legacy by donating today.
So for all of those bears, well, let me start. In 2017, bear professionals from across the United States got together, and we've identified 1,000 bears in need of placement that are living in people's backyards and roadside attractions. And so Bears Etc. wants to build a sanctuary for those. There are lots of big cat sanctuaries across the country. We are a part of the Big Cat Sanctuary Alliance. There are lots of wolf dog sanctuaries. There are lots of parrot and reptile sanctuaries, but there are 0 true sanctuaries. And what I mean by that is sanctuaries, true sanctuaries, do not buy, sell, breed, trade, or use animals for entertainment. So that's what we're wanting to build, hopefully here in Walker County. We want to be able to use these animals as ambassadors for their wild cousins and educate people about how small bears really are. I usually bring a life-size cutout of a Texas-sized bear. They're only about 5 feet tall. and only about 150 to 300 pounds. So they're not very big at all. Kind of, if you've ever been around a Newfoundland or a Great Pyrenees, if you have guardian dogs, they're not much bigger than those guys. So we want to tell people they're not going to eat your kids at the bus stop. We want them to be able to see the bears and learn proper behaviors around wildlife. Have an economic impact on our community by bringing tourism to our area and a place for families to go. And I know you guys are 2 hours away, but here we would have to fight Houston traffic to get down to the Houston Zoo, and it's not very fun. So they could come north and visit our sanctuary there. And then we would like to, but everybody's cameras are in their phones nowadays. But I have this dream of getting these lockers and putting people's phones in the lockers so that way they can just be out and experience a piece of the wild, the PEAC that comes with being out in nature. And you guys know that, you know, you're master naturalists. The feelings that you feel and the de-stressing that happens when you're just out in nature, we want people to have that feeling as well when they come to our sanctuary. So there's not running around, there's not yelling and screaming and stuff like that can happen at a zoo. This is a place of tranquility and appreciation for wildlife. And after rescue, bears do truly smile. And I'm not anthropomorphizing that at all. They're kind of like our dogs smile. And this is Mamie. That's the bear that lived in that 20-foot diameter corn crib that you saw earlier. She is our Y. When we rescued her in February of that year, she was 130 pounds and she should have been 300 pounds. And this is her at 300 pounds, ready to go into hibernation. So I was very excited when we hit that goal weight with her so she could truly hibernate that winter. And this is Baloo. He's my cutest bear you'll ever meet. And this is my contact information. We are on Facebook, Instagram, a little bit on Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm not very good at social media. I'm always looking for help with social media, but my email address is there. And so if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Okay, so here in the room, does anybody have a question? I'll bring the mic to you so that Katie can hear you. Ow.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
You know, I was told one time that if you're walking in the woods, you see bear scat. And it was probably a black bear, but if it has bear bells, then it was probably a grizzly.
Probably.
You talked about $1.4 million. Is that a one-time thing or an annual thing?
I'm sorry, say that again.
You talked about getting money for Texas, $1.4 million.
Uh-huh.
Is that an annual or one time?
I believe that's annually.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Oh, 1 second. Okay, Miss Brenda.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
What part does our heat play in attracting bears in Texas?
What does our heat play?
Yes, temperatures, high temperatures.
They usually, during the summer, they become nocturnal. They're at least crepuscular here, which means morning and evening they're out and about. When it cools off, if it's during the day, a lot of times you'll find them around the water sources taking a bath to cool off. But most of the time, during the heat of the summer, they're going to be sleeping and go strictly nocturnal.
Okay, hold on. Angela, and then pass it over to Robin.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Do you have statistics for bear sightings in Trinity County and Walker County?
As of right now, there have been none that Texas Parks and Wildlife have approved, I guess is the way, or has said yes, it was a sighting. Do I think there may be some here in Sam Houston? Yes. My husband and I have seen scat that look like bear scat, and then partial print that look like a bear print. But TPWD has not said yes to that. And I just 2 weeks ago looked like bear scat in Willis. We're trying to find a place that we can send it off to get DNA tested to see if it was a bear or just a large dog, but it looks very bear-like to me.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
How much land do you need to accommodate 1,000 bears?
Oh gosh, to accommodate all 1,000 bears, we're talking probably at least 500 acres. We've identified a 388-acre tract that we would love to purchase here in Walker County. We're still in the process of figuring out what permits we need in this county, since we did just move here, and county permits are a little bit different than Montgomery County. With that, we would be able to say at least 500 of those bears over time. Obviously, the most critical ones first, and then go from there. Right now, there's just a hold on bears being moved because there's nowhere for them to go.
So Katie, what kind of fencing do you put around your property to keep the bears in the sanctuary?
So the law requires that we have 8-foot perimeter fence and then a 12-foot high fence around each habitat. So we'll have 2- and 5-acre habitats, and they will have like a 9-foot with a 3-foot kick in, and then hot wire. Bears are very sensitive to hot wire, so we'll have that, and then dig guards, especially for brown bears. Syrian brown bears and black bears are the most common in the exotic pet trade. There are a few grizzlies, and there are some Asiatic black bears, and there are a couple sloth bears. There's 8 bear species in the world, and if the private sector can breed them and sell them, they do. So we are seeing some of these threatened species in the exotic pet trade as well.
I've got a question concerning those large animals, bears and stuff for human entertainment. Are those legal in the United States?
It is. So it's a $50 permit in the state of Texas to have a bear as a pet. And you don't have to have a Texas Parks and Wildlife permit for it if you bought it from a breeder out of state.
And your sanctuaries are basically large tracts of land that will allow these bears to live like as a normal life as they can.
Yeah.
But will you have people come in there to observe the bears?
Yes.
Like zoo life?
Yeah, because we want people to see them and hear their stories and why it's not a good idea to have a bear as a pet, and also what we can do to help their wild cousins, right? So we will take them in and provide them permanent placement for the rest of their lives.
Okay, now this differs from the Texas Parks and Wildlife goals to reintroduce bears into the state of Texas. And of course, I'm sure they have some criteria and parameters that they have to have in set in order for those bears to be able to survive and thrive, correct?
Right. So they would take, they would take, like Louisiana brought bears from Florida. Some of them, Arkansas, brought bears down from other northern states. And they'll bring females with cubs because they found that females with cubs won't go back home. Although Louisiana did have one bear that ended up back in Florida by that fall. They'll bring them in like late January, early February after they've had their cubs. And then they'll place them in a den site and hope that they stay there. But one of those female bears did end up back in Florida because they were tagged. So yes, there's a difference. The bears in the exotic pet trade are pulled from their mom at 2 to 3 days of age and bottle fed and raised by humans. So they could never be put back in the wild, even though they have some of their instincts. They wouldn't know where to find food. Bears, specifically, follow the trails of their ancestors in finding food. So there is a place called Bear Hill, if you Google it, and it is generations and generations of bears moving from their summer to winter habitat. And it's a worn path by bears generation after generation. It's very cool. And where to find that food, because like I said, they're seasonal feeders, and what they eat in the spring isn't the same as they eat in the fall. And so without knowing this, the bears in captivity would never survive.
Thank you.
Okay, another question. Hold on.
You're
Going
fine.
across the room.
I got time.
Katie, do you allow the bears that are going to be in your sanctuary to breed, or are they all sterilized?
No, they will all be either spayed or neutered, because we don't want to create more mouths to feed, right? There's enough of them in the exotic pet trade that we don't need more. Also, most places will just neuter the males and not spay the females. But learning from other sanctuaries that have bears where there are wild black bears, they sometimes have a problem when they do come into estrus. And so the wild black bears will try to break into habitats. And so they spay their bears. So that's best practices and what we'll do as well. Just to prevent future, right? Because the plan is for bears to be back in East Texas. Those are goals. So.
Katie, I've got a question. You mentioned that you've identified 500 bears in need of rescue. How difficult is it to persuade someone who's holding a bear to give that bear up, especially if it's lucrative? How does that process work?
So right now is a little bit easier than it used to be because of the cost of care, right? Produce and meat has gone up in price, and so just feeding these animals can be expensive. And then housing, bears are very strong, and so building a bear habitat is very expensive. We're looking at $50,000 to build a bear habitat, whereas a tiger habitat could be anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 because bears dig and climb. So it's a little bit easier now to get them away. Some of them, if they're really neglected and abused, we're seeing lawsuits cause them to get them out of that holding by Animal Legal Defense League, the Humane Society, or PETA, because of the neglect and abuse that is happening where they're at. And so those are emergency situations that those need placement. But right now, sometimes it's just a matter of, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting older. We're seeing a lot of the owners that are, just elderly. The 5 bears that we rescued back in 2018, the guy had cancer and he actually passed away 2 weeks after we moved his bears to sanctuary. That was emergency placement, and finding a place for 5 bears was very difficult. It took us 6 months to even get all of the transport and everything figured out and get them placement, because they actually had to modify a habitat where they were going. And so it's getting easier and easier to have them give them up. But the cubs, no, you rarely see a cub in sanctuary because they are so lucrative in those other places.
Katie, for these bears that are going into sanctuary or that have been captive all their lives, do they know how to hibernate? Or is there like a special shelter that you have to have for them, or do they know to go dig a hole someplace and hibernate?
So it really depends on the bears, and it's very interesting watching these bears heal and actually go into the hibernation. So if they have enough food in the fall, they will go into hibernation, and it's actually attached to their genetics, so to speak. There is a gene that tells them when they're full that shuts off in the fall, and it has to do with photoperiods, and that they just eat and eat and eat, so they never feel full. And they gain all of this weight, and then when they come out of hibernation, they lose it. And I really wish that would happen to us, because I could really, get those winter pounds off. I am not a fan of winter. That's why I moved to Texas, and then we've had these freezes. But yeah, it is. It naturally happens with them. We see a lot of zoos that have changed over the years in restricting diets in the fall, so they stay up all winter, to now allowing them to go into hibernation, and it reduces the amount of stereotypic behavior that we see, the pacing, the paw sucking, and the stress that we see in captivity. I just actually got back from the Advancing Bear Care Conference, which is bear zookeepers and rehabbers from around the world that come together once a year to learn the best practices for bears in captivity. So whether it's bear rehab or anything like that. And so the studies have shown that them going into hibernation, it actually heals whatever may be ailing them. And bears don't get diabetes. And there's a couple of other things that bears don't get because they sleep all winter, and it gives their body time to heal. Now, they do get cancers and stuff like that. They do get arthritis. But it helps heal. Sorry, I think my husband's coming in the door and my dogs are barking. And so if they're full enough in the fall, they will sleep all winter. Some bears that we rescued in Indiana, they didn't hibernate that first fall because they were too thin. And Mamie, the one that I told you about in that 20-foot diameter corn crib, she was 130 pounds. There was no way she could sleep and survive the winter. She would slowly starve to death. So she had to stay up and be constantly fed. And so once they are satiated and they don't require food anymore, they will go to sleep. And it's like great because they don't get up and eat, they don't get up and drink, they don't get up and poop or anything like that. So they're pretty easy to take care of during the winter when they're not causing trouble. Oh, hold on just a second. He lets dogs out.
Okay. Are there any other questions here in the room? Oh, okay. Okay, so Jimmy wants to know what kind of dogs you have.
So the one that's causing or that has the most noise, his name is Shiloh, and he's a white shepherd husky mix, and he's up for adoption through Who Rescued Who. And then we have a what is Reggie? Reggie's like a pointer boxer mix, and he's up for adoption through Operation Pets Alive. So if anybody's looking to adopt a dog, we have a couple good dogs that are up for adoption. So personally, we have a big like lab mix. We have a little terrier mix. I have a cattle dog mix. I have a pit bull who was used as a bait dog, so she's missing part of her face. Her name is Robin. So anybody on Instagram, if you look up #rooting for Robin, you'll see her story. We did make the dodo and We Care for Animals with her story. We found her dumped in the National Forest and starved, and it's just a very sad to happy story that we have her. But yeah, so we have 6 dogs, and then we foster, and then we also have our Doggy Dude Ranch, where I do boarding and grooming and training of dogs. So we have a constant influx and exit of dogs in our home. That's our for-profit business.
Well, it sounds like you keep very busy there.
Yes, yes. Always looking for volunteers to come help with animal care. We do currently house exotic birds and reptiles while we fundraise to get the property so we can house bears.
Okay. All right. Nothing else? All right. Well, John, was there anything online? No? All right. Well, Katie, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We appreciate the information and wish you the best there with that effort. I mean, it sounds like an awesome project, and hopefully it comes to fruition.
Yes,
So
thank
thank
you
you very much.
very much. And maybe next year I can come speak in person. So that way, hopefully the floods don't happen again.
Or a field trip to see your.
Oh yeah, come for a field trip.
Okay.
We'd love to
All right.
have
Well,
you all
thank you.
out.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great